did go through homework. I also sent out on Remind the PowerPoint with the updated lesson for today for notes and for homework. I'm still going to send out screenshots of the homework for you guys to answer. If you're not on Remind, either two reasons: you haven't downloaded it yet, or you can't access it. Please let me know, because that is the most successful way for me to check homework and communicate and share things with you guys. While you guys are going through this, I will, first of all, I'll do a shout out to the people who did get 100% on the homework, and that is Hyra, Daniel, Shania, Genesis, Lydia, Jennifer, Quadwo, and Jalissa. You guys all got 100% on the homework. The people that I'm still rating on receiving homework from is Louis, Angelo, Christina, Naima, Angelique, and Danny. Again, if for some reason you aren't able to access Remind, just let me know. Shoot me a message in the chat right now if you do have your homework. The rest of you, I did receive it from. But again, Remind is the easiest way. If for some reason you cannot download the app or access it on a computer, just let me know. Yeah, I have Optimum, Lewis. Mine's kind of crappy. That's why mine was going out yesterday. Oh, okay, Angelique, I got your message. If you just want to send me the homework through the chat right now, like your answers, that's also good. Great. If you have it written down, even better. And another great thing about the Remind app is some of you guys have noticed I will like remind you to send the homework. Like a couple of you, I like texted you. I was like, hey, homework, and you guys were like sent to me, and it was fine. It's super easy for me to literally just type in a text and send it to you through Remind. Okay, you sent me your homework from Jupiter. Lewis, thank you. If you can, Lewis, though, either on your phone or the computer, the Remind app is like the best way. Jupiter is crazy. Thank you, Angelo. And today I'm going to have Jalissa go over the homework, and we will start that in a second. We'll give you about 5 more seconds to get the EQ and recall. Let me hear Jennifer. Can you read the essential question for today?
How do variations within a species impact evolution?
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. You can mute yourself. Eric, can you read the recall?
Survival of the fittest states that individuals that are better suited to their environment survive and reproduce most successfully.
Thank you. And that is what we really explored yesterday, this idea of survival of the fittest. In general, individuals who are best suited for their environment are going to be more successful, and they're going to reproduce and carry on. Ones that are not, they will eventually die out. So let's move on to today's lesson, starting with going over the homework. And I'm going to have Jalissa. Let me find you. You will be going over the homework for today. Go ahead, Jalissa.
Do I read it, or?
Yeah, just read out the question and then the full answer.
Okay. Which two species are the most closely related? I got B. Okay.
Yeah, F and G. Why did you say F and G?
Because those are the closest ones, and if you look at all of the other ones, they're not together.
Yes. Kaylin, I sent the PowerPoint through Remind app. You should have the link on there. Keep going, Jalissa.
Number 2, which species was the best adapted to changes that occurred in its environment over the longest period of time? I also got B.
Yeah. Why did you pick B?
Because it has gone through more of the changes in the one to the right.
Yeah, and before you move on, Jalissa, this one was a huge misconception. So I want you to know that every letter represents an entirely new species, okay? So if you have like letter A, it changed into 2 different species, whereas B continued and it's still around. That means it did not have to, it didn't die out, it didn't, another species didn't come from it. It's actually survived all those different generations because it was able to adapt to its environment. All right, keep going, Dulce.
Number 3, which two species would most likely show the greatest similarity of DNA and protein? I got C.
C, why'd you pick B and a J?
Because for A, they're both the closest one to like the have the arrows and the same one, unlike the other ones which aren't close to each other or touching.
Good job. Thank you, Jalissa. And we haven't really gone over these, essentially these like diagrams yet, but just to kind of review, it's essentially you have A, and then it's going to become D and E, 2 different species, and then D turns into F and G, which is 2 different species. E turns into H and I, which are 2 different species. So that's just the general breakdown of what the arrows mean and what those letters are representing. All right, thank you, Jalissa. Let's move on to the review. I'll give you guys about 3 minutes to go over these and answer them. And I'll tell you guys what I told my other class. Please, if you have a whiteboard or you want to like try and grab a whiteboard, they're super cheap, and a marker to better efficiently answer these questions that I do not want you to write down in your notebook. I just want you to kind of like answer. But this shouldn't be too hard to remember the 2 letters you picked, because this is only 2 questions. All right, so read through these and answer them. I'll give you 2 minutes. And Caleb, I got your message. I'll post it in the chat. And Christine, I'll send you the code. There you go, Christina. And in the chat, I'm sending the updated PowerPoint. And if you think you know the answers to 1 and 2, send it to me in the chat, and I'll pick the person who has answered them correctly to go over these. Give you another minute. Christina, you successfully joined Remind. I just got the message. Thank you. Thank you, Jalissa, for your response. Ooh, a lot of people are, there's a big misconception with 1. Remember, there's no best trait, okay? Think of it more broadly. Kiara, you are right with number 1. Good job. Hyra, you are correct on 1 and 2. Olivia, you are correct on 1 and 2. Good job. Lewis, you're correct. Good job with number 1. All right, I'm going to have, while some of you guys are finishing sending me your answers, I'm going to have Olivia. Can you go over, read the question and then the answer that you chose for each 1 and 2?
Number 1. The diagram below shows a population of adult giraffes over time. Letters A, B, and C represent 3 time periods. 1. How does this picture show natural selection? And my answer was D. Only giraffes with advantage just adaptation survive.
Yes, correct.
Number 2. The diagram below represents one possible evolutionary change that could have led lobe-finned fish to develop into the first amphibians. Amphibians are animals that live on land some of their life. And that shows, this change from fins on the lobe-finned fish to legs and feet on the early amphibian is most likely due to, and that shows D, variations among offspring, followed by natural selection.
Yes, you are correct. Thank you, Lydia. So we have D for 1 and D for 2. Number 2 is tricky, and that's because we have to remember when we're talking about variations, you cannot make assumptions. So it says a sudden mutations don't just happen suddenly. Increased competition between animals on land, that would actually make it want to stay in water. And then C, it says the need to move to land because increased competition for food in the ocean. It's not just going to grow legs because it needs food. It's going to have variations first, and then they are going to start reproducing, and then natural selection. Okay, so just think about like a broader term. Number 1, a lot of people said that the tallest animals are always the ones that survive. The wording in that answer is tricky. B is wrong because that's a statement that is not correct. That's just not a correct statement. So the reason why the short one died is because it was not advantageous to have a short neck in this scenario, in this environment. So just keep that in mind. All right, we're gonna do one more. Number 3, I'll give you about 2 minutes to answer this question, and send me your answer in the chat, and I'll pick the person who is, I'll pick someone who gets it correct to go over it. Prince, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Mute yourself, I muted you. Quadro, make sure to let me know when there's 5 minutes left, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Steph, you are right. If you can't open the PowerPoints, it might be because you don't have PowerPoint. I'll fix that. I'll just check the Google Slides one. All right. Steph, can you tell us, read out the question and then tell us what you got?
Which diagram best represents the evolutionary pathway of the strawberry tinted iguana? B, 2. I picked B because I noticed how throughout the time it was on this earth, there started to be different adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got to present day, I knew it was going to be a more type of change.
Yeah, why did you pick 2 in particular? What did the arrow represent that you were looking at?
The arrows represents the 2 different adaptations that was made for the environment.
And you picked the one that was closest to what, 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on, and we're gonna go to talking about the key points for today. So we're actually gonna look at some case studies about variations in species, and kind of like the impact of variations in species, and also things that in general are going to impact evolution. All right, so for the sake of time, we only have, I'm gonna skip through, actually no, let's play this. I need some feel like I'm back in SUNY for a second. All right, so I'm gonna play a video, and it's going, I want you to, as you watch the video, to kind of take a note on the different variations there are in all these fish, and about why there might be so many different types of fish in the ocean. All right. there is all right. All right. Spez, can you hear me?
What's the author's point of view about being?
Oh, let me go back for a second.
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Oh, okay. I like hid my bar that controls the panel so I could see. Spez, what are some things that you noticed about how different the fish are underwater?
That one fish that like ate the smaller fish in the sand, I've never seen that fish before.
And what are some things that you noticed about the fish?
What in like what regard? What do you mean?
Physical characteristics.
A bunch of different colors.
Bunch of different colors. Okay.
Different
Thank
shapes.
you, Spez. Yeah, different shapes. Steph, what are some things that you noticed?
I noticed that the different sizes and different colors of the fish.
Awesome. All right. We are going to actually look at, oh, wait, Deb, what are some things that you noticed? Why do you think there's such a variety of fish underwater? Why do you think there's so many different types?
Because over time, different fish came to life and then were placed in the water. Alright. Then some fishes were really big, and some fish are really small. Some fish have different colors, and some fish have really small eyes.
Yeah, that's a good interpretation to talk about. Over time, you have different types of fish forming. And I want us to start remembering to make that connection between like why these different fish are forming. And a lot of those things we're going to talk about today, maybe due to their environment, maybe due to natural selection, all those great things. All right. I'm going to skip through this for the sake of time because I believe we only have about 20 minutes left. So let's move forward. We're going to talk about mutations. So we talked about how before with sexual reproduction, we have recombination, and that's what gives us variation. Someone tell me how that's related to, we talked about with siblings, okay? How does sexual reproduction affect siblings and the characteristics that siblings have? Jason, go ahead. I'm trying to unmute you, hold on. Oh, go ahead. Jason, I think you're muted yourself. I can't hear you. Bye, Jason. Kevin, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you talk about how sexual reproduction results in siblings characteristics?
But there's different combinations for each sibling.
Beautiful. Is exactly it. You're having in sexual reproduction, there's recombination of traits, right? So it creates variation, right? So that's one of the big things that helps with evolution. Now we're going to talk about mutation. Can I get 3 readers for mutation? I'll have Olivia read the first paragraph. I will have, let me get some new hands. Can I have, Manuela, I haven't heard from you in a while. Manuela, can you read the second paragraph and that last one, the third one with the sentence? Angelique, can you read that last one when we get there? Awesome. All right, Lydia, go ahead.
Mutation is the ultimate source of variation. Mutation is a change in genetic material. Without variation, there could be no evolution, so mutations are of great importance to evolution. Important to point out that existing variation can be reshuffled by a variety of mechanisms that we don't always consider as mutations, leading to increases or decreases in variation and thus altering the potential for evolution.
Awesome. You can mute yourself, and my second reader is, who did I pick? Oh, Manuela. Go ahead, Manuela.
The whole human family is one species with the same genes. Mutation creates slightly different versions of the same genes called alleles. These small differences in DNA sequence make every individual unique. They account for the variation we see in human hair color, skin color, height, shape, behavior, and susceptibility to disease. Individuals and other species vary too, in both physical appearance and behavior.
Thank you, Manuela. All right, Angelique, read the last paragraph and the last sentence.
Genetic variation is useful because it helps populations change over time. Variations that help an organism survive and produce are passed on to the next generation. Variations that hinder survival and reproduction are eliminated from the population. This process of natural selection can be led to significant changes in the appearance, behavior, or psychologically individuals in the population in just a few generations. Once the new, what did I say?
Allele.
Alleles. Oh, once the new alleles arise, meiosis and sexual reproduction combines different alleles in new ways to produce genetic variation.
Thank you. All right, so that's going to lead us to our first notes for today. And this is about the significance of mutation. So not only does sexual reproduction aid in kind of like the variation by recombining our alleles, but the mutations also occurring, like with hair color and eye color, creates more, essentially more variation. So first part of our notes for today is mutation is the ultimate source of variation. And I used the example below of the different types of lemurs. And there's actually, you only find lemurs on the island of Madagascar. And lemurs are one of those species that are very unique because there's actually over 100 different types of lemurs. So there's actually a huge variation within the lemur species. I picked the three most popular types of lemurs. The ring-tailed, obviously, is one of the most popular, and that's the brown lemur. And then that's the sifaka, and that is another type of lemur. That one's actually a lot bigger than the other two lemurs. But just looking at the images of lemurs, you can see how much they vary genetically, and they're actually all the same species of animal. And we could already make some assumptions to why maybe these lemurs are different, how they have those different variations depending on their environment over time. The next part of our notes is that genetic variation helps populations change over time, okay? And that last part is useful variation passed on. We're going to pass on all the things that help the species survive. Bad variation ends up getting eliminated. That species either goes extinct, that variation doesn't continue on, and so on. Oh, sorry, let me go back to that. Jason, you had your hand raised? I still can't hear you, Jason. I don't know what's wrong. Sorry. All right, we're still going with the notes. Some of you guys are still writing. I am going to continue on in a second. All right, let's move on. So I'm not going to do the discussion part. I want to go to the case studies in a second. But I'm going to have you guys get the last part of the notes, and we're going to use these factors of evolution to apply that to the case study. So this is the last part of your notes for today. So create a section that says factors impacting evolution. So we're going to look at these 4 factors that will impact the way a species evolves. All right, so the factors that impact evolution. First one is overproduction. You see this a lot with species like turtles, where they produce a lot of offspring at once. So what happens when you are overproducing? A lot of the offspring end up not surviving. And how this impacts evolution essentially is that only individuals with the best traits are going to survive. So that means in a situation with like turtles, you have so many hatching out of the eggs, only the fastest ones are going to survive. Those of you who are unfamiliar with the way that turtles reproduce is they lay their eggs on shore. They all have to hatch and they all have to swim to the ocean. And what happens is on that journey from hatching to the ocean, a lot of them get eaten because they're trying to run to the water from the shore and they're exposed. So what happens is only the fastest and most successful turtles are going to make it to the water, whereas the other ones will probably get eaten up. So overproduction is one of those things that might impact evolution. You're going to have the turtles that are only the fastest going to survive. Lewis, go ahead.
Is this the reason why that people help when baby turtles are born to go to the water? So
Yeah, that's a good that is exactly a reason why. There's 2 ways that they do it. So typically, yes, people naturally want to help the turtles and protect them, but when you do that, you're interfering with a natural form of selection, right? The slowest ones are going to be eaten by the birds. So there are a lot of people that don't agree with that, but because turtles have become endangered, they actually put in it's essentially human interference, right? We're now interfering with natural processes, but that's because turtles are endangered. Whereas before, some people might say like, no, this is natural selection. This is the way that the environment and ecosystem works. You should let them eat, because you have to understand when you're stopping a bird from eating a turtle, you're essentially now interfering with that bird's food source. Our next unit is talking about ecosystems, and we'll see how they call it like a butterfly effect. You interfere with one, it can have a ripple effect with others. So that's a really good question. All right, the next one is going to be variations. So this just means any difference between individuals of the same species. The impact that this has is that the individuals within the species with the most helpful variations end up reproducing and passing down their traits. So you have differences between individuals in the same species. Usually the one with the most helpful difference is going to end up reproducing and passing down their traits. You could see this with birds. A lot of male birds attract females with their color. And so that means that variation, so the brightest, the most colorful bird in that species is probably going to end up reproducing the most. Our next factor is natural selection. We talked about this in depth. This just means individuals are better adapted to the environment, have a better chance of surviving. The impact is that trait, that beneficial, useful trait, will actually become more common in the species. And we looked at this with the long neck of the giraffe. All right, next one. And our last one is environmental change. This is a very, very interesting one. A lot of environments naturally change. We have changed environments by human impact. So when we talk about environmental change, this is when there's a change in the environment that will affect an organism's ability to survive. Impact is that the organism's ability to survive leads to selection. If the organism cannot survive, The organism cannot reproduce, which is extinction. Really quickly, I'll show a video tomorrow about the spotted moth. So back during the Industrial Revolution, pollution was really bad, smog was created. So the environment changed to like a grayish color. The spotted moth started to become more visible to prey because of its wings were spotted. So the environment changed and resulted in the moths getting eaten more by predators because it stuck out amongst the gray background. And that was an environmental change that caused to natural selection. And eventually the spotted moth started to change its color to match the environment the new environment was in so that it could survive. A lot of species are able to adapt or to survive. Some do not and they end up dying. That's where that phrase adapt or die comes from. I'll give you 1 more minute to copy down the notes, and then we're going to look at some case studies. Thank you, Kiara. All right, let's move on. Actually, I'll keep this up while I talk about what we're going to do. When we look at the case study, we're going to read it, and then you're going to have to pick one of the four. That's the factor it's talking about. So it's either going to be overproduction, variation, natural selection, or environmental change. And then you're going to tell me what impact that's going to have in this particular case study. So you're going to really need to reference your notes when we're looking over these to be able to identify if it's overproduction affecting it, variation, natural selection, or environmental change. And then we're going to talk about what impact that could have. So I'm going to go over the first model, the first case study. So in this case study, we have a sea turtle. Sea turtles can lay up to 110 eggs, but most of them won't survive to reproduce fertile offspring. Only the best adapted sea turtles will survive and reproduce. So this impact that we are seeing is going to be, I see some like hands raising. I'm going, see, I don't know, Jason, I don't know if you have, I'll give you one more shot. Do you have, can you hear me? Speak. Jason? Oh man, I don't know what's wrong with your audio. Genesis, in this case study, what is which one of the factors is impacting evolution here with the turtles? Oh, you're muted too. What? I can't hear you either. All right, I'm gonna go to, I saw Lydia have her hand raised. Let me go to her. Wait, what? I don't even see Lydia. All right, I'm gonna go through this one because Lydia, I don't even see you on my thing. Weird. Oh, there you are. Go ahead, Lydia. What is the factor impacting it?
This is overproduction.
It is. It is overproduction. Yeah, go ahead.
This is overproduction because if we go back to our notes, because the sea turtles, they produce far more offspring. So and then basically from there it's just like a natural selection. So whoever's the fastest and gets to the sea first survives, and whoever's slowest becomes dinner.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So in this situation, we're looking at overproduction affecting evolution, and these are going to cause the turtles to evolve to only the fastest will survive. All right, our second case study. We have climate warming projections coupled with temperatures preferences taken from current tree distributions. Have some scientists predicting that sugar and red maples will be replaced by warmer adapted species in the northern U.S. Sugar maple is the most abundant species in the Northeast forest with immense ecological, economic, and cultural importance. So we see the climate is warming. Who can tell me, raise your hand, which factor is at play here that is going to affect evolution? We have the climate warming. Kiara, go ahead.
Is it variations?
We have the temperatures increasing. So which one of those?
Environmental change?
Yeah, it's going to be environmental change. And thank you, Kiara. You can mute yourself. What might happen if in this scenario is if the temperature keeps changing, future sugar maple trees may only survive if they're able to adapt, and those that don't die out. So this is a good case study because it shows you it's not just animals. When we're talking about organisms, we're also talking about plants. All right, the next case study is the coral fish. So when we're looking at the coral fish, where's my Deb, you're making the craziest face. It's terrifying. When we're looking at the coral fish, by far one of the most colorful, diverse groups of animals. Their extensive range of bright colors and bold patterns is virtually unmatched in the entire kingdom. Although they may be beautiful to behold, there is a real function behind each of these designs. Red colors appear black underwater, helping fish to go unseen. Stripes allow fish to camouflage against coral. Spotted confuses predators. Each species of fish deals with survival in its own way. They're left to wonder at their accomplishments. So there's a lot. This is going back to the video we watched in the beginning. There's particular reasons why they have these colors. They're not there for show. It's a lot of it has to do with survival. So when we're talking about all these different colors and the way they look, which factor are we talking about here? Let me see some hands. Jason, I see your hand, but can't really talk to you because you're not saying, and I can't hear you sound. So which factor is this? Let me, Hyra, which factor is this going to be impacting? Or what factors is impacting evolution? All the different colors.
Variation.
It is variation. Good job, Hyra. You can mute yourself. Huh? Yeah, you're right. Variation's right. It's variation, and the way this is going to impact coral fish in the future is that because this variety, it'll eventually evolve and get a lot of changes based on the environment. I think, we have 3 minutes. All right. Let's do our last case study. The porcupine is the prickliest of rodents. So its Latin name means quill pig. There are about 24 porcupine species and all boast a coat of needle-like quills to give predators a sharp reminder that the animal is no easy meal. Some quills, like the African crested porcupine, are nearly 8 foot and long. Not all porcupines have long quills though. There's a variety of them that don't. They are constantly on the defense from large predators such as lions and desert foxes. So what factor is impacting the evolution of the porcupine the most? So we're talking about how it's a defense mechanism against predators. Quadwo, send us off for today. What is this factor that's impacting the evolution of the porcupine?
What did you just say?
What factor in this case study is affecting how the porcupine is evolving? We have 4: overproduction, environmental change, natural selection, variations. Which one of those is changing the way this porcupine is evolving?
Natural selection.
It is natural selection. Good job, Quadwo. Natural selection is affecting the porcupine's quills. And what this is going to do is their quills are going to get longer and sharper because it's constantly trying to defend itself against predators. All right. So that's what brings us to the homework for today, and I'll explain this really quickly. In our homework, you have an image. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's essentially showing a predator, which is this little like deer that is going and eating the cactus. So it's showing in pictures 1 and 2 what happens when the deer comes to eat, and then picture 3, it's showing a cactus a few weeks later. Notice the flowers on the right-hand cactus. And in picture 4 shows a situation a few months later. Remember that flowers is the form of reproducing that plants make. So make that connection between natural selection and reproduction. All you have to do for this 1, 2, and 3 is just answer the questions. Okay, do not write out the question, just answer it. Questions like 1 and 2 should be really short and sweet. Number 3, you can answer in like 1 or 2 sentences. It's up to you as long as you're able to answer the question. There we go. I see my chat. Jason, I haven't been able to hear you. Deb, what's your question? Go.
Who, me?
Yeah, you said
I had a
teacher.
question.
I have a question.
No, not anymore.
Do you remember what it was?
I just wanted to know what a lemur was.
A lemur?
Yeah.
It's actually a primate. Like a little
Wait, my
monkey.
brother?
What?
What? What are you
It's a
saying?
primate. It's a primate. You never seen Madagascar, the movie where they're dancing? I like to move it. Yeah, that's them. They actually do
Okay.
dance. Yeah. Well, if you guys are bored in quarantine, look up videos of lemurs dancing. It's so fun.
I'm not gonna do that. Good suggestion.
Yes, Prince, you can leave. Those of you who